Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ad America TV. Hi, I'm Maya Trainer. I'm one of the e-guides here at Ad America, and we welcome our audience joining us online. We truly hope that you are doing well and staying safe amidst this outbreak. Well, anyway, for those of you who are first timers here, hi, welcome to Ad America TV for the first time. Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center. Our mission is to provide a space for young generations of Indonesia to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a solely digital platform so you can enjoy our program from the comfort of your own home and help flatten the curve of COVID-19. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment box below, and our panelists will answer them later in the seminar. And for our friends here who are joining us through Zoom, there are a couple of features that you can use to actively participate in the seminar. You can use the raise hand section to ask your questions with your video on, or you can also use the chat box section whenever you wanted to say hi to the other participant and also the panelist as well. But please keep in mind to use these features wisely. Right? Cool. Now, today we will be having a session titled Financial Resiliency for Millennials During the Pandemic 2.0. But as per usual, before we begin, we are going to have a social media quiz. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. The question is it true or false that more than 3/4 of millennials do not have adequate financial knowledge? I will repeat the question one more time. Listen carefully. Is it true or false that more than 3/4 of millennials do not have adequate financial knowledge? You can participate this quiz through our social media comment section and stay tuned till the end of this program to find out if you get the answers right. Now, one more thing before we begin. Please don't hesitate to take a selfie, capture this moment, and share through your social media and let everyone know that you are having a great time with Ad America. And don't forget to tag us on Instagram at ATAmerica. And now, without further ado, please welcome our moderator for today, Bapak Budi Setiawan.
Okay, thank you so much, Kamaya, for the introductions. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to an America live stream workshop. Today, we are going to discuss about financial resiliency for millennials during the pandemic 2.0, atau ketahanan keuangan generasi milenial pada situasi pandemi 2.0. I think this topic is very essential because we are living in a very dynamic world due to coronavirus or COVID-19. Seperti kita tahu bahwa penyebaran COVID-19 mendorong pemerintah untuk mengambil berbagai kebijakan. Ya misalnya di Indonesia penerapan 3M atau yaitu memakai masker, mencuci tangan, menjaga jarak hingga menghindari kerumunan. Tentu kebijakan ini memiliki dampak terhadap aktivitas manusia dan juga perdagangan, termasuk kegiatan ekonomi secara keseluruhan. Nah, beberapa hari lalu kita bisa melihat di banyak media pemerintah secara resmi mengumumkan bahwa pertumbuhan ekonomi Indonesia pada kuartal ketiga sebesar negatif 3,4%. Sebenarnya pertumbuhan ekonomi ini sudah membaik dibandingkan triwulan kedua, yaitu PDB Indonesia berada pada teritori negatif atau minus 5,3%. Ya, akan tetapi karena PDB Indonesia negatif dalam 2 periode yang berturut-turut, maka ekonomi kita masuk ke zona yang namanya resesi. Nah, lalu pertanyaannya, apa yang harus generasi milenial lakukan? Apa yang harus generasi milenial persiapkan pada saat kondisi yang sangat tidak pasti seperti ini? Okay, talking about this current economic situations, we will have invited our distinguished guest speaker from California, USA, Mr. Wenrich, dan juga kita akan mendengar sharing dari Bapak Karaniya Dharmasaputra atau yang biasa kita kenal dengan Pak Kara, selaku CEO Bareksa.com, one of the prominent financial marketplace in Indonesia. Nanti pada virtual workshop ini teman-teman juga bisa mengirimkan pertanyaan melalui akun sosial media @Amerika seperti Zoom, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, dan Facebook. Oke, tanpa banyak introduction, saya akan memperkenalkan salah satu main speaker kita pada pagi hari ini, yaitu Wenrich. Sebelum itu, saya akan memperkenalkan sedikit, membacakan sedikit biografi mengenai Mr. Wenrich. Mr. Wenrich atau yang biasa disapa JJ adalah seorang veteran di dunia investasi dengan pengalaman lebih dari 20 tahun. Jadi pengalaman JJ ini sudah melewati beberapa krisis. Ia dikenal karena dapat menyederhanakan konsep yang kompleks melalui pendekatan yang menyenangkan. Ia adalah seorang pembicara yang paling dicari oleh penasihat finansial, perusahaan, organisasi nirlaba, dan organisasi lainnya. JJ juga merupakan seorang perencana keuangan yang profesional yang sudah tersertifikasi, dan ia juga mendapat Certified Financial Education Instructor dari National Financial Education Council. Selain perannya sebagai penasihat finansial, pengajar, dan juga pembicara, ia menghabiskan 13 tahun sebagai seorang konsultan investasi untuk sebuah firma investasi nasional. Sebelum akhirnya berhenti untuk kemudian menerbitkan bukunya yang berjudul Teaching Kids to Buy Stock, dan kebetulan saya juga pernah membaca bukunya dan sangat menarik sekali. Dan mengikuti panggilan, setelah itu JJ mengikuti panggilan untuk mendidik dan memberikan nasihat bagi individu, keluarga, dan organisasi mengenai pentingnya pengambilan keputusan finansial yang baik. Tentu materi yang akan JJ sampaikan ini akan sangat menarik sekali karena mungkin sangat relevan dengan kondisi ekonomi dunia maupun ekonomi Indonesia pada saat ini. So, JJ, without much introduction, I think time is yours, JJ. You can present your slide.
Thank you, Budi, very much for the introduction. Not very many introductions that I'll receive where I didn't know what the man said about me beforehand, but as I don't speak Indonesian, I assume you said all good things, Budi. So thank you, Budi, for having me on and introducing me, and thank you to America for inviting me to do this workshop. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the people in Indonesia, and looking forward, hoping that this is a good use of your time on this beautiful Saturday morning for you, or a Friday night for me here in the United States. So with that, let me share my screen and get to my slides quickly. Give me just a moment. And if you can't see my slides, then please let me know, but I think that everything should have worked out okay. Let me pull up my chat so I can see. And then we'll get started. Okay, very good. So hopefully you see a picture of me. If not, somebody let me know and I will fix the slides. But yeah, looking forward to having a conversation with you today. Hopefully this is good information. If you are on social media, just quickly put my 2 Twitter handles up there. One is for me, and then one is for my book. And then we're on Instagram and Facebook as well. So here's the agenda, what I'm going to speak about before I turn it over to our other speaker. What we're going to talk about today, really laying the foundations for learning more about investing. I've always found that if you're going to learn about investing, sometimes you need a little bit of motivation as to what investing can do for you first, and then it makes it easier to want to learn about investing. So we're actually going to start by covering compound interest. Really shows you the power of what investing can do for you when you let your investments work over a long period of time. So I'm going to focus quite a bit of the session on this topic, because what I've found is when I skip over this topic and go straight to investing, people end up asking about it, and it ends up being something that we should have covered at the beginning. So we're going to talk about compound interest, and then we'll do just a quick light introduction to stocks and bonds, and then indexes and mutual funds. If you don't know what those are, then that's fine. That's why we're here. We'll explain all of that. And this will really build the platform that we will continue to build in the next 2 sessions. We'll be doing this again next Saturday and the Saturday following to just continue the lessons. So they'll each be progressive. Each one will be different. So we'll build on the things that we learned today into the next session, in the next session next Saturday. So to start out with, when you're talking about investing, you're talking about, why are you doing it? It's to earn a return. You want to earn a return on that investment. That quite simply being the gain or loss on that investment, but it's usually expressed as a percentage of that investment's initial cost. So if you're looking at, what it means in simple terms, if you buy something for $100, you sell it for $125, well, you've made $25. But you express that as a percentage, just take your profit divided by that initial investment, gives you that rate of return, which is 25%. Pretty simple, right? You want to buy things and be able to sell them for more later, or maybe you buy things that pay you for owning them along the way. That's the idea of investing. So just to set the stage on the math, something that I believe had been covered in previous classes at America is just the very basics of managing your cash flow and budgeting. And the point of doing all that work of managing your cash flow is so that you're able to buy assets. So you're able to purchase things that have value, that will hold value, or will pay you some sort of rate of return, and not to buy things that will just depreciate and eventually go away. So if we can avoid buying or borrowing money, avoid having unproductive liabilities where we have to pay interest, and instead if you can save money and purchase things that will pay you interest, it's amazing how far that will take you and what flexibility that it will give you financially, and gives you the independence to be able to live life on your terms and with a little bit more freedom if you're not always worried about making sure you have that next paycheck. If you have money saved up, you have investments that are working for you, it gives you the freedom to sometimes make changes that you want to make. So personal finance, it really means managing your interests, which is what we're going to talk about now, is the idea of compound interest, or earning money on our money. So interest in its simple definition, just money paid or earned at a given rate of return. And there's different ways you can do that, and we'll get into that as these sessions go along. But just to knock some of the math out so you can find out how powerful this math can be for you, first, just want to quickly cover, for never know what math people have had, and especially teaching people in the States where I find that Americans aren't always that great at math. Always try to remind them that, you can convert your percentage to a decimal. And from there, that's how you make some of the calculations. So just real simply, just to kind of set the stage, and then I'll show you the power of it. If you have $1,000 and you earn 1%, take 0.01 times that 1,000 gives you $10, or 10% takes 0.10 times that 1,000 gives you $100. Simple, right? A little shortcut to get you to the final answer. If you add 1 plus that rate expressed as a decimal and multiply that times your principal or your initial amount, then it gets you straight to the final balance. So rather than just having to add it back together. So you take 1,000 times 1 plus that 0.01 for 1%, gets you straight to that final answer. So if you have an initial investment of $1,000, you earn various rates of return. You earn 5%, gets you to $1,050 after 1 year. 10% gets you to $1,100. 15%, take it times 1.15, gets you to $1,150. And if you earn 20%, gets you to $1,200. Simple enough, right? If not, let me know. So move a little bit quickly at the beginning just to get to the part that really shows you the power of how the compounding effect can really take on a life of its own. So how do you earn interest or a rate of return? Well, by investing the money, either bank deposits, which I know in the United States, interest rates are very low, so you don't get a whole lot of interest on your bank deposits. I'm not sure Indonesia, I should know this, maybe one of our co-presenters can tell us, but I know a lot of parts of the world you have negative interest. I should have looked it up. I don't know the interest rate environment in Indonesia as well as maybe I should. But you can loan money to people and charge them interest, or you can put it into investments like stocks and bonds. So just a real quick comparison, simple interest, and then we'll talk about compound interest. So simple interest just means you only earn interest on your original investment. You don't also earn it on the interest you've made. So if you look at just an example of simple interest, over the course of 4 years, you'd have earned that same $100 on 10% interest every year. You didn't earn any additional interest on the interest you earned. It'd be kind of like taking your interest out of the account each year. So you end up with $1,400 at the end. What I'll try to show you is that when you earn interest on your interest over time, or you allow it to compound, that's when the numbers really take on a life of their own, and it can become quite powerful. You may know who this guy is, Albert Einstein, one of the most famous physicists in the history of the globe. And he has two wonderful sayings when it comes to compound interest that really help, just kind of help get your attention that this is something that can be powerful. He says compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. He says that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and that he or she who understands it earns it, but he or she who doesn't, well, they pay it. So if you're owning assets, then they can pay you. But if you have debts and liabilities, well, then you're paying somebody else's rate of return for them. And so when you think about that, this compound interest being the most powerful force in the universe, this is a man who helped build the nuclear bomb. So he knew a thing or two about powerful forces, yet he comes back to the idea that compound interest is the most powerful force. A little bit tongue-in-cheek or sarcastic when he says that, because I don't think that if you go to war, you're going to win any war by throwing calculators at each other. But the point he's making is that it really can take on a life of its own. So let's go back to our examples from before of 10% interest for 1 year, and then carry it through to the second year. In that second year, rather than just earning 10% interest on 1,000, you're earning it on 1,100. So you earn $110 that second year at 10%. Year 3, same thing. You don't just earn it on that 1,000, you're earning it on what you've already earned. So each year, you're earning a little bit more in interest. So it just builds. And so in that fourth year, you're up to 1,464 because you've earned interest not just on your original amount, but also on that interest. So your payment here, your annual interest has gone up by a third compared to where you started in that first year. So just kind of putting it all together. Going to keep working through some examples just like this. If you like formulas, this is a formula that will get you to that final annual compounded number. You just take the final amount is going to equal your principal times 1 plus the rate expressed as a decimal, and then raise it to the number of years. So that would be for an annual compounding. There is more frequent compounding that is beyond the scope of what we're going to cover in this. We're just going to stick to annual compounding. A few quick notes on both interest rates and rates of return. I'm using round numbers. I'm using 1% and 10% just to keep the math simple. Borrowing rates can be much higher than 10%, and keep in mind those work against you. You're not earning borrowing rates. Investment rates are going to vary based on the investment. Some years you may have a negative return, some years you may have a positive return, and there's any number of factors that are going to dictate that. I'm using a 10% average annual investment return in these exercises. 10% annual average return, that's a very good rate of return, and implies that you've taken on some level of risk to achieve that return. I'm not going to get into the specific investments too much today. Just want you to understand the math behind it and just the power of letting your money work for you for a long period of time. Here's a website that I like to use that I recommend students check out. It's a free website, calculator.net. And you can work a lot of different exercises on this website. This is the investment calculator, but there's a lot of different types of calculators on that website. There's loan calculators, all sorts of things. So if you're someone like me that likes to play with calculators, it can be quite fun. But even if you're not, it's a very good tool to help you just see the power of the compound interest. So what we're looking at here is the investment calculator going to calculate the end amount for us. So we've plugged in $1,000 for 10 years at 1% with no additional contributions. And as you can see, after 10 years, we've earned a little bit, but it's only 1%, so we haven't earned a lot. We've earned about $104 in interest over the course of that 10 years. Here's what it looks like. I'm not going to go through each one of these too slowly, but you'll see that the interest builds by a little bit each year to where you get to that ending balance that we showed on the previous slide. So let's crank it up a notch. Let's heat up that interest rate to 10%, and notice that after 10 years at 10%, we've more than doubled our money. In fact, we've doubled it and then thrown another $593 on there. So after 10 years, not only will you have doubled your money, you made a little bit more, you've made almost $1,600 just by earning that 10% rate of return. Now, again, 10% is a good rate of return, so it did make you some money. But again, notice how the interest started out 10, but it goes up every year. Here's that first example we worked through. But then when you let it keep going, by the 9th year, the 8th year, you are making as much, you've doubled that annual interest that you're earning. And that's just after 10 years. So you can see that if that just keeps going and that just keeps building, it can become quite powerful. So let's see exactly how powerful. After 20 years, 20 years can seem like a long time to wait, and it is, but after 20 years, your $1,000 has really grown for you. You now have almost $7,000 from that just initial $1,000 because you allowed it to earn that 10% rate of return, and it builds over time. And so that's that power that Einstein was talking about, that it starts out slow, just $100, but after 20 years, now you're making almost as much in interest as you saved to begin with. And if you let that keep going, well, it becomes even more powerful. And so that's what Einstein was talking about when he called it the most powerful force in the universe. Any discussion of compound interest, it's always good to cover the rule of 72. This is one of those little tricks in finance that it always kind of amazes me that this thing exists and works. But the rule of 72, it's just a quick formula to estimate. It's not going to give you an exact amount, but it's a quick formula that will estimate the number of years required to double your money at a given rate of return. So if you take 72 and divide it by the rate of return, it'll give you the number of years it would take to double your money. So if you divide 72 by 10, then it's going to tell you, with 10 being your rate of return, it's going to tell you that it takes about 7.2 years to double your money at a 10% rate of return. Or if you want to divide it by 8%. So if I earn 8%, how long will it take to double my money? 72 divided by 8 is 9. So it would take about 9 years to double your money. And so let's think about that. How many doubles might you have in a lifetime? Let's just assume you're earning 8% as an example. How many doubles do you have in your lifetime? So if you're starting at 20 and you have $5,000, well, that means if you take 72 divided by 8, in about 9 years, you should have about $10,000 without adding to it, just letting the compound interest do its thing. Well, let's go 9 more years. We're up to age 38. Well, we've doubled it again. How many more doubles do we get? By age 47, we've doubled it to 40. By age 56, we've doubled it to 80. By age 65, we've doubled the 80 to 160. And you can see how powerful that becomes, each time we double it in 9 years, because we started with 5. And by the time we are in our 70s, we have over $250,000. You have 320. And if you double that, by the time you're 83, you're looking at $640,000. So you can see it becomes quite powerful. Now, it can be intimidating to try to say, well, I need $5,000 to invest. Well, what if I don't have $5,000? It's really important that you just do what you can. If it's $5, then make it be $5 that you're saving. If it's 10, then do whatever you can. But it's about getting into a habit of saving before you spend and managing your expenses in a way that you do have some extra so that you can save. But it always works best if you save the minute you get your money, and then decide how to spend it. Obviously, we have things we have to spend money on, our housing and that sort of thing. But if you can get in the habit of, all right, every time I get $100, I'm going to save 10 of it, it can become quite powerful. So you don't have to start with a big pile of money. In fact, most people don't. You have to start by just doing what you can. If it's $1, if it's $5, or maybe $100. So in this example, I'm going to walk you through saving $100 a month, earning an 8% rate of return. And what's that going to look like? So going back to calculator.net, starting at 0, going for 10 years at an 8% rate of return, we're going to be adding $100 every month. So $1,200 every year, 12 months in a year, over 10 years, we'll have saved up $12,000, but we'll have earned about $6,000 in interest. So in 10 years' time, just by saving that $100 a month, we could have an ending balance of over $18,000. And it's really important to see that just that little bit every month can really add up to a very nice, cushion for you, a nice base to continue to earn interest year over year. So just quickly walk you through how it works year to year. You see the interest started not much because we hadn't saved a whole lot. But by that 10th year, we're earning as much in interest as we are actually saving. Look at this. In year 10, our interest is giving us over $100 a month. So we've in essence doubled how much we're saving each month because our investment is doing the work for us. And let's keep that going. Let's go 20 years. So in 20 years, you'll have saved the $24,000, $100 a month for 20 years. But by the end, you'll have over almost $57,000 because your interest had longer to work. So here's that same example as before. Here's we left off. And then we kept going. And by the end, you can see that our compound interest is really making quite a bit for us each progressive year. So one more, let's keep it going for 30 years. 30 years can be a long time to wait, but take a look, $36,000. By the end, it's earned over $100,000 just in interest, and that's at an 8% rate of return. So here's that last 10 years that I didn't show before. Look at that. By the end, you're earning over $10,000 a year just in interest. Pretty soon, you'll be to the point where it's giving you $1,000 a month in interest. And that's the idea. You put that money to work, and then eventually, when you do want to start to live off of that money, you can let that interest or the earnings off of the investments make that pay your income so that you don't have to work for that income. Let your money work for you. I'm going to skip through that. My favorite example is this one right here, because a lot of people, and I think that this is meant for a class for millennials. Millennials, it's a pretty large age group. You have people from in their late 20s to all the way into their early 40s, I believe. A lot of people will say, you know what, I can't afford to save now. I can't even afford that $100 a month or $50 a month or $20 a month. I'll just wait until I'm in my 30s. I'll just save later. I'll wait until things are different, when I have had some raises, and I'll just save later. But what we find is, one, it never gets any easier to save later in life. In fact, sometimes it can be harder because if you're in your 30s, maybe now you're starting to have children, and maybe those expenses are taking it. So it's best to get in the habit of saving as soon as you possibly can, even if you're still in school. And so let me tell you a little bit of story here. call it the story of two savers, or the story of the emoji twins. So we have twin emojis, the sunglasses emoji and the reading glasses emoji. I guess you could call one cool and one a nerd, but I think nerds are cool, so I have a little bit of a struggle with that. So I'm going to call them the sunglass emoji and the reading glasses emoji. So both are twins, born on the same date. They both earn 8% on their money per year. So just like the examples that we just went through. The reading glasses emoji with the big teeth, this emoji saves $1,000 per year. So not even $100 a month, just $1,000 per year, but starts as a teenager. Starts at age 19 and does this through the 20s and stops saving after age 31 and never saves again in this example. So saves for those years, but then completely stops. The twin emoji, on the other hand, waits, does not begin saving until age 32. Saves the same amount, $1,000 per year, but doesn't start until age 32, and then never stops. You may not know this, but emojis can live to be quite old. In fact, they can live to be hundreds and hundreds of years old, and this emoji never ever stops saving into the hundreds, into the 200s. So let's run through the numbers quickly and see what it looks like. So this is the first emoji, 13 years from age 19 to 30 through 31. Saving $1,000 a year, 8%. That $13,000 will have grown to $21,495 by the time it turned age, 32. Excuse me. Here's how the interest breaks down. You can see it growing each year as more is added to the pile. The twin, on the other hand, hasn't started yet, so has nothing. So at age 31, one of them has $21,495. The other one is just going to finally get started. Keep in mind, the reading glasses emoji stops at this point. Here's the math on the next 20 years, getting them to age 52. Started with that $21,495 that we talked about in the previous example. We're going to go 20 more years without adding anything else. So even without adding anything else, that original $13,000 has grown to over $100,000. Looking at the twin, started with 0, 20 years later, saving $1,000 every year, has saved up $20,000 in contributions, has earned about $25,000 in interest, so has a little over $45,000. So if we do a comparison, at age 52, reading glasses emoji has over 100,000, and sunglasses emoji has less than half of that amount. And keep in mind, that's even with saving an additional $7,000 in that time frame. But let's keep it going. What you'll find is that even without ever saving anything else beyond that original $13,000, reading glasses emoji stays ahead. Sunglass emoji, even with saving every year from 32 to 82, so we'll have saved $50,000 in contributions at that point, still has not caught up to that original $13,000 that the reading glasses twin had saved up. And what you'll find, you can run this, and I should have put a slide in there, but I didn't, but you can run this till they're 182. Sunglasses emoji still does not catch up. Even after 100 years, 200 years, even with all that additional $1,000 a year, it still is not enough to overtake the one that started early. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you can invest when you are younger, it can really help you make up for a lack, for not maybe having the highest income. But it's really hard to make up for not starting early when you're older. You have to save a lot more money, and even then it might not be enough to catch up. So whatever you can do to start early and start young, hopefully you see that it makes a tremendous difference. Even if it's only a small amount, One, you get into the habit of doing it, which is part of the battle, is being in that habit, but also it gets that money working for you earlier and lets that power of compound interest really become powerful more quickly. So let's talk a little bit about how we invest. We won't go too deep here, but the idea of investing is to put your money to use in hopefully something that will offer you more money, either through interest, income, or going up in value. Now, different higher returns may usually require higher level of risk, and the idea of risk is you might not get that return. You might not get that money back, and so you have to start to think about how comfortable you are with risk, because even though they say, high risk, high return, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes high risk means no return or no return of your money. So you have to be very aware of what you're investing in. But in general, if you want to earn a higher return, it's going to involve taking on a little bit higher level of risk. So it's really important that you understand yourself and know how you feel about the idea of potentially losing some money. And I always say, before you can put money at risk, you need to make sure that you have money set aside in things that are not risky. Nobody likes losing money. I always say that's what separates us from the animals. Animals don't care when they lose money. They're not worried about it. But some humans can deal with it better than others without losing sleep. Some people, it doesn't bother them and they can sleep just like that cat. And others, they're going to be wide awake and it's going to bother them. And so you have to know how well you can tolerate risk, or what is your risk tolerance, a term to measure how well you can mentally handle those fluctuations. A more aggressive person doesn't mind losing money as much as a conservative person. But what you'll find is oftentimes you can have a higher tolerance for risk if you have more time to dedicate to it. So the longer time you have to leave that money alone, the more you're able to overcome some of those risks, the more you're able to see values recover if you do have losses along the way. So if you don't have a lot of time, if you need this money next month or next year, you shouldn't take on a lot of risk. There's three basic classes of investment that I'm going to cover here. And quite simple how I like to break them down. First is cash, and cash should be your first investment. Cash is cash. Its job is to be there when you need it and to not be worth less than you put it in there. Whether that be a bank account or some other type of cash investment, not necessarily just keeping it in physical cash where it can get stolen or destroyed, but find a way to put that money where it will be safe. Its job is to be there. Its job is not to necessarily make you a lot of money. It's just to keep you from, if you're having an emergency happen, if you have something, maybe you lose your job or whatever may happen, you need it to be there for you. Bonds and stocks, bonds are loans. It's a loan to whatever entity is issuing the bond, and stocks are ownership. You are an owner in that enterprise. So from the risk spectrum, cash is low, stocks are high, and bonds are in the middle. But some bonds can be much riskier than others, just like some stocks may be riskier than others. This is my rule. I've not heard too many other people call this the most important rule in investing, although I've certainly, when I've had conversations, pretty much every investor comes back and says, no, that might actually be the most important rule in investing, and that is, don't use long-term investments for short-term goals. So when you're talking about stocks, and we'll talk more about stocks in a second, stocks are long-term investments. The most important rule is you should always save cash first, because you need that money there for you in case of a rainy day, in case something bad happens. And if you start buying stocks before you've saved cash, well, what if you need an emergency happens and the stocks are down? Then you're taking a loss. And so if you have cash set aside first before you start investing, it'll make you a better investor, because you'll have a higher tolerance for risk, because you won't worry about it as much, because you know you've got some cash set aside if you need it in a hurry. If you don't do that first, then you set yourself up to fail.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, Didi?
Yeah.
Yeah, still have 2 more minutes.
2 more
You
minutes?
wanna,
Okay.
yeah, 2 more minutes. You want to sum up?
Yep. Let me wrap things up here. So bonds, are loans to different organizations across the globe. They can be governments, they can be companies. We'll get into this in the next section, next session. We'll break this stuff down in a little bit more detail. But there's some different, details to how bonds are structured. But in essence, you loan money to that government or that company, and they pay you interest along the way for the right to use that money, and then they'll pay you back at the end. Stocks, you are ownership in that company or that enterprise. I would say it's simple to know, but easy to forget that stocks represent real people and real businesses. So when you're looking at what types of stocks to buy, just think about it as, all right, I'm looking at what type of business I would like to own. So if you own a share of a stock, you own a unit of ownership in that company. Now, not all companies are public. Most companies are private, but for those that enter the public markets, there can be all sorts of reasons why they want to do that. Well, then anybody who has money to invest can become an ownership in those stocks or bonds. Indexes are how we organize different types of stocks and bonds. It helps us measure different parts of the market. So if you hear people talking about indexes, it's just referring to this collection of different stocks or bonds. And there's different ways you can invest. And this is stuff we'll go deeper into in preceding sessions. But you don't have to just pick which company you want. You can buy something where it's pooled with other investors so that there is a company that is deciding which shares to buy. So a fund, you may own just one fund, but it may own hundreds or more of individual investments within it. So the way I like to explain it, and this is where I'll wrap it up, if you own individual stocks, it's like having one big giant window on the front of your house. If there's a kid throwing rocks at that window and they hit it and they break it, well, you're replacing that whole piece of glass. With a fund, you own a collection of many, many different stocks and or bonds, and it's like having panes of glass on that window. So if that kid throwing rocks connects, well, maybe he just takes out one pane. So you just have to replace that small piece of glass, not the whole entire window. And so it reduces your risk when you own funds versus just trying to pick one individual stock, because you have more different types of investments within that one investment.
Okay. JJ, have you done?
I'm all done.
Okay, thank you very much, JJ, for the very, very interesting presentations. Okay, I think it's interesting, to see how compound interest double our money. And also, I do believe that compound interest one of the powerful weapon in this world, to improve and to grow our assets. Okay, thank you very much, JJ. And we will have our second guest speaker. Our second guest speaker is Pak Karaniya Dharmasaputra, or we can usually know him as Pak Karna. I would like to introduce a bit about Pak Karna. Pak Karna saat ini menjabat sebagai Presiden dari OVO Indonesia dan juga sebagai CEO dari Bareksa.com. Kita tahu bahwa Bareksa itu adalah salah satu one of the prominent financial marketplace in Indonesia. Dan Pak Karna memulai Bareksa itu di tahun 2014 sebagai sebagai sebuah pasar uang yang saat ini menawarkan reksadana online dan obligasi pemerintah secara online. Pak Karna lulus dari George Washington University di tahun 2006 dengan gelar Magister di bidang Public Policy, dan karirnya beranjak sejak saat itu dari Presiden Direktur di Liputan6.com, lalu menjadi Sekretaris Jenderal di Asosiasi Vintage Indonesia, dan mantan Deputy CEO dari Kapan Lagi Universe. Okay, without any much introduction, Pak Karna, time is yours.
Hello. Can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, okay. So let me. How about now?
Yes, Joe Biden peak.
Okay. Okay. So, good morning, everybody, and good evening for JJ. So, yeah, thank you for having me. I think as a a co-founder of Baraksa, I think we appreciate very much this webinar. Hopefully, in this event, I can translate more that we have learned from JJ. I think thanks to JJ. I just want to translate a bit what JJ has explained to us to Indonesian context, and also to lay out and map out the trend that now is we are seeing, growing very tremendously and significantly in Indonesia, especially in the online investment market. And this market is heavily driven by millennials. So let's start. So first, yay, Biden is winning. So my topic is, I think we need to build back better, as Biden says, and I think we have learned from Pak JJ, and I think the investment is one of the tools that we can build our future better. So let me introduce to what Baraksa is gitu ya. So Baraksa is, I think Budi just explained, Baraksa is an investment marketplace. We are a fintech company, and now Baraksa is also a part of the family member of OVO. OVO is one of the largest e-money company in Indonesia, and now we are offering several services from mutual funds and then retail government bonds, and then we also beta launch Baraksa, what we call it as Baraksa Gold, and now we also doing a beta testing for a limited users for our robo advisor. I will explain a bit about this our robo advisors, and also what we call it as Baraksa Umroh. Baraksa Umroh is the saving for the Muslims to go to the Mecca. Basically, the underlying assets is the Sharia money market fund. And also we have what we call it as Baraksa Priority. Baraksa Priority is the special services for the high net worth investors in Baraksa. So this is our journey. So Baraksa is basically the first fintech company licensed by the OJK. OJK is our financial regulatory agency. And then back in April 2018, we were appointed by the Minister of Finance as one of two fintech companies with the Investry. Investry is a P2P lending company with, I think at that time, 8 banks. I think 8 large banks, like BCA, Citibank, to start distributing government bonds online. And then we launched our gold offering in last April. So now in Baraksa, we are partnering with 37 asset management companies like Schroders, Asmore, and several prominent local fund managers like Mandiri, Danarex, etc. And then out of, I think in the market now, there are more than 600 mutual funds. We have curated some of them. We selected for our users, and then we now are listing and offering almost 200 mutual funds. And then we are also working together with Tokopedia, Bukalapak, Doku, and I think hopefully early December we are going to launch mutual funds in OVO. Right, and then this is we have won several awards as an investment platform, and this is a really important deck that I want to share with you. So the topic can the resiliency of the investment for the millennials. So we all know that we are still in the pandemic, right? And then when the pandemic hit our country in March, I think at that time, yeah, as a co-founder and as a CEO of Bareksa, I think at that time, yeah, I thought, wow, that was gonna be the end of Bareksa, because at that time I thought, siapa yang mau invest gitu kan? Who was going to invest? Everybody was in a deep trouble. But fortunately, my assumption is wrong. So the figure in front of you showing that I think we are replicating the path of the Chinese investment market. So you can see during the pandemic, right? All the metrics are keeping going up. The AUM, the asset under management, right? How much money still on our investment portfolio? You know, the number of the new investors, the number of the transaction are all keep going up. So that's why this is Pak Wimbo ya. Pak Wimbo is our ketua OJK. Dia bilang investor retail lokal semakin mendominasi di pasar modal, and our local investor basically now highly dominated by millennials, right? So this is a bit translation to what JJ has explained. Yeah, I think one of the core issue in Indonesia, because we have I think today, yeah, this is not too accurate saying anymore lah. In Indonesia, we call it menabung pangkal kaya, or saving is the source of your wealth, of your richness. And I'm afraid today this is no longer true, right? So this is why Bareksa, back in I think 5 to 6 years ago, I and several friends launched and developed Bareksa because I think we are seeing a very sad phenomenon here in Indonesia. Because of this old saying, in which no longer true, so people just keep saving, millions of people, right, and millions of millennials as well, still keep their money only in the regular saving banks. I'm not saying that you should not save your money in bank anymore. Of course, it's still needed. But if you want to grow your money, if you want to grow your wealth, I think you need to start investing. So this is a simple simulation here. So currently in Indonesia, if you save only 1 million IDR, right? If you keep your money below 1 million IDR in most of banks, basically you get 0% interest rate. So if you put your money in 1 year, 1 million IDR, basically the interest return is the interest rate is only 0.7%. And then I think now it's going down. I think during the pandemic, the interest rate now is only maybe 0.3 or 0.4, or even less, right? And then you can see, the interest rate that you get from the saving account in banks, it will be taxed by government, and the tax is 20%, right? And then you need to pay for the admin fee in Indonesia. Bank admin fee in Indonesia is quite high. It's almost I think around maybe 12,000 or 13,000 a month, right? And then you end up at the end of the year, your money is not growing. Instead of growing, basically your money is shrinking almost 15%. So this is the fact. But on the other hand, we have an investment product, what we call it as a money market fund, right? And in Indonesia, majority of the underlying asset of the money market fund, usually placed also in the bank time deposit. And then this is the contrast, yeah. If you invest your money 7 million IDR in money market fund, first, it's not taxable. It's untaxed. because this is a part of the government incentive to grow the mutual fund industry in Indonesia. So banks, you will tax 20%, on the mutual funds 0%, and then there is no admin. So usually, historically, if you please go to Bareksa website or application, and you can play around yourself, because we offer much data for free, and then you can see historically our money market fund performance, I think ranging from 5.5% to 7% net a year. So I think the value proposition is really obvious, right? You still keep saving your money in banks, and you end up losing your money almost 15% a year. And another, you can grow your money net 5.5 to 7% a year. So that's the reason behind Bareksa. So let's skip this here. I think this, and then I think let's skip this as well. I think JJ has explained compound, the power of compound interest, I think very well. So this is the trend, yeah. So what is happening right now in our country, in our investment world? So most of the, not most lah, I think all the investment products in Indonesia back to, I think, 5 to 6 years ago, only offered manually, right? So used to be you can only buy mutual funds, bonds, right, corporate bonds as well in banks, or also and also in securities, and it's very manual, right? And then back, as I explained previously, I think in 2016, OJK revised the regulation and then allow a fintech company like Bareksa to start distribute mutual fund online. And then what is happening? I think we can see the penetration of the mutual fund industry in Indonesia is really small, even compared to Malaysia, Thailand, not to mention Singapore, yeah. So, but after we adopt the digital technology, like Bareksa and other players too, and then we can see a significant jump, even though the penetration is still very small, but the spike, the growth is really significant, right? And again, this growth is driven by millennials investors. And the same trend we can see also not only in the mutual fund market, but also in the retail government bonds. So trying to replicate the success story of the utilization of the financial technology and digital platform to penetrate the mutual fund industry, Minister of Finance launched a similar initiative, and then a similar trend we can see here. So even now Bareksa, this is based on the Minister of Finance assessment. In terms of the retailness, they have a sort of the parameter to measure the retailness of the distribution of the our retail government bonds. So in terms of the retailness, a technology player like Bareksa now already on par with our top banks in Indonesia, BCA, Mandiri, BNI, even already above from BRI, right? And then in terms of the reach, this is really important. So only a technology company like Bareksa can reach all the 34 provinces in Indonesia. Even BCA and Mandiri can only reach 32 provinces. So again, I think this is showing the growth, the emergence of the fintech playing in Indonesia. And again, this is all driven by the millennial investors, right? And this is another proof that millennial investors now is playing a really important role in driving investment industry in Indonesia. So we compare the demography of the investors in Bareksa and in banks. And this is only for the mutual fund investor in banks. So I think the picture is really contrast. In Bareksa, the investors who is younger than 41 years old is 85%. So it's very dominant. In bank, it's only 32%. So geographically, Bareksa investors residing in outside Jakarta is 73%, but in banks, it's only 64%, right? So I think this is a really important trend that I think Indonesian millennials should understand, and I think need to if you are not familiar yet with the investment, I think the investment now is, as JJ explained, is really important for your future financial health. And also now it's really easy because government has already been allowing to utilize the technology platform like Bareksa and other friends in the industry. And not only that, I think this is another really important. So that's why now we are integrating our platform with OVO. This is also another trend. So used to be in Bareksa, because the payment of the investment is also one of the major hurdle. Usually, most of the investor only when they sell mutual fund, when they buy mutual funds, they just do the manual bank transfer, right? And it's not seamless, and the user experience is not really good. And then now I think since 4 months ago we integrated with OVO, and then we push OVO as one of the payments option, and then we can see all of a sudden more than half of our investors now in Bareksa. Now in Bareksa we have 1.3 investor accounts, and more than half now is choosing OVO as their payment option to buy funds, right? And then now we also offer Bareksa Gold, and this is another product for for Umroh. I think let's discuss a bit. So I just want to explain this one.
Okay, Pak
Yeah.
Karna, we still have 3 minutes. Okay, you can
Yes,
explain
this is the last slide.
Okay, thank you.
So now in Indonesia, I think this is already popular in the US, in China, but Indonesia, I think we are still at the very beginning. So now we are seeing a fast-growing retail investor market, right? And most of them are the rookie investor, unexperienced investors, and then they need help. So that's why in Bareksa, and there are several other robo-advisors too, and Bareksa now is under a discussion with OJK, because OJK required Bareksa robo-advisor as hopefully as the first licensed robo-advisors in the country. So the idea is we want to help the mutual fund investor, mostly retail investor, rookie investors, to make decision. So this is a trend in the investec area in Indonesia. So I think that's all I have, Mas Budi, and hope that can help your understanding, and would be happy to take questions after this.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pak Karna. I think it's very nice presentations, and we have questions. I think we'll have a question, and for the first question, from Machan Wigit, and I think this question can be answered by JJ and also Karna. The question is, I would like to ask, as someone who knows so little about investment, it is safe to work with agency that handle mutual fund. So it's all about to choose the agency uh, to start investing in mutual fund. If yes, is there any tips how to select the right agency or partner to handle my investment? Okay, the first, I think, Gigi, could you please answer the question?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. And I think that if you are new and, like the person said, you don't know very much about investments, I think that it makes most sense to start with a fund. That way, if you don't have a lot of experience, it's best to buy something where you're not just picking one company. It's a package of several things. So I do think it makes sense to start with a fund. And in the next two sessions, so next Saturday and the Saturday after, we'll dig a little bit deeper into analyzing funds and how you maybe compare one to the next. But I think that's definitely probably how you should start, and how most people, at least in the United States, initially start is by just buying funds within usually a retirement plan at their employer. The second part of your question, any tips to select the right agency or partner? I'm sure that my co-presenter has some opinions on that. Sounds like he has a wonderful platform to make it pretty easy to do just that. We'll get into analyzing stuff in future sessions, but something I always try to ask and look for is just two things. One is, what are the costs, and then how much have returns been when analyzing individual mutual funds? So not necessarily trying to ask my co-presenter to talk about that, but just saying, when you're looking at any investment, you always want to say, all right, what has the cost been, and then what has the return been? Because I don't mind paying for something for good returns. You just don't want to pay something for, like he showed in the bank account, where you're paying to earn hardly anything. So when it comes to Indonesia, I defer to my partner, because he has much more insight into the Indonesian marketplace for mutual funds and for the platform. So be interested to hear what you say, Karaniya.
Okay, Pak Karaniya, do you want to share
Yeah.
some insight?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
yeah, thank you. I think that is a really important question here. So first, I think we are all familiar, without naming anybody here. I think there was quite a big scandal, right, involving some sort of the, illegal investment advisors, right? So please be advised, and I think this is, I need to emphasize very strongly, that the investment in Indonesia now is a highly regulated area. So even a company like Bareksa is not a fund manager, right? We are only a platform, we are only a marketplace. We provide technology, we provide data. We are curating the funds, bonds. We need to obtain a license from OJK. So of course you can seek any advice, but please check to OJK website first, because all the financial planners, all the investment advisors have to be officially licensed by OJK, and you can check all the license in the OJK website. So even for Bareksa, right, we are building a robo advisors, and then now OJK requires us to obtain a financial investment advisory license first before we can launch, and then they audit all the algorithm, right, and then how we would provide the data to our customers, how we would select the funds, so that kind of assessment by OJK. So and then I think please feel free to to just go to Bareksa or even to our friends in the same area. I think there are several platforms now, and then I think a platform like Bareksa offer a very deep data, the performance, the risk, right, the underlying assets, right, for of every funds that available in the market. So really important to to get benefit from all these free services. This is all for you, so you can download all the data that you need to understand, and we also provide digital tools and all for free. I think the goal is only one. We want to educate and we want to guide the investor. Again, Indonesia, JJ, yeah, Indonesia is the market is growing, but mostly driven by the rookie investors. So I think digital offer all the services that you can check and learn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pak Karna. I think we will have the second question. I think it's come from my college at Indo Global Mandiri University, and the question is how to allocate income effectively. Sometimes we confuse how to allocate for the consumption, for the investment, and so on. And I think JJ will address this question first, and after that maybe Pak Kanya will add some insight. Okay, JJ.
So, and the question was, how do you allocate for income?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, and that's a good question, and it's a question that is harder to answer now than it was when I started my career 20 years ago, because income is harder to get now. So there's different ways you can do it, but typically you want to look at things that provide income. That's not a very deep answer, but bonds are going to be your first stop, because as my co-presenter Mr. Karaniya said that you don't get much for cash right now. You don't get much interest for cash. In fact, it looks like it costs you unless you're above a certain level. And so bonds, different types of bonds, will pay an income to you and give you a little bit more of a stream of interest that is a little bit more predictable than you might be able to get in other manners. But you can also get some income from stocks if you buy stocks that pay a dividend. Just keep in mind, when you buy stocks for income, you still want to be able to leave those stocks alone for quite a long time. I'd say at least 5 years and probably longer, because you'll see a lot more up and down in stocks than you will in the bonds, and that's even if they're paying, good yields. And I'd say be very careful about just looking for the stocks that pay the highest dividends, and we'll get into dividends in the next week's session, so I'll be able to explain it a little bit further. But a lot of times people that want income, they'll look at stocks and they'll say, hey, I'll just take the one that looks like it's paying the highest dividend. And oftentimes what they've found is that the stock price drops so much that it makes it look like it's going to pay a high dividend, when in fact it's probably the market knew that they were about to cut a dividend. So you want to be careful not just buying the thing with the highest yield, because a lot of times the things that have the highest yield, they got that way because the price dropped, because the market is always looking forward and anticipating. So to come back and actually answer your question, I'd say you want to look for things that are going to pay an income, and then determine if that income is not going to be enough for what you're needing. Are you going to have to pull money out in addition to that income? I mean, the income producing assets are bonds, and then a little bit for stocks as well. But just know that if you want to be able to track how much are you going to have to pull out, or any, and make sure that you have enough in safe investments to help account for anything that you're going to have to pull out, versus if you're just going to be able to leave it alone, not have to touch it, well, then maybe you can take on a little bit more risk and maybe have some more aggressive investments, maybe some stock type investments that are still going to fluctuate a lot, but will pay you out a dividend, pay you out some income. So I don't know if that helped or not, Budi.
Yeah.
But it's really, you want to kind of create that portfolio, which is a combination of multiple things.
Yeah.
Have some cash for the short-term needs, some bonds for the medium, and then the stocks for the longer, the stuff that you can leave alone the longest.
Okay, thank you, JJ. Pak Kara, do you wanna add some insight in terms of allocating the income effectively?
Yeah. So I have a picture to answer that question. Let me share.
Okay, thank you so
screen
much.
a bit.
Thank you so much, Pak Kara.
Okay. Can you see?
Yes, Pak Kara, we can see.
Yeah. So this is from Warren Buffett. I think the key answer is discipline, right? Buffett, I think, is the one of the legends in the investment, but I think no longer, yeah, JJ. But he says that, I think this is very true. He says that do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. So I would recommend, I think maybe if you are interested to save in stocks, to invest in stocks, or also invest in the equity funds, right, for the longer term. And then I think it is really important, especially if you are going to invest in the equity funds, right, equity mutual funds. So the mutual funds, that the underlying assets is the stocks. So I think it's really important that you need to discipline yourself to regularly, maybe every month, right, to save, to set aside your money, maybe after you get your salary, and then to invest regularly every month. So that's why, because as JJ said, the stock market is usually, up and down, and even very volatile, especially during this kind of the situation. And then, in my experience, if you invest regularly, let's say every month, and then you can get a sort of shock breaker for your investment to overcome the volatility of the market. So I think that's what I always suggest to our users, to our investors. I think the discipline, once again, I think is the key, as I think Buffett has suggested. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Kara. Discipline is a key. Thank you so much. I think we have another question from Nadia Cahyadi. I think this question is addressed for Pak Kara. It's all about artificial intelligence. The question is, how accurate is robo helper, or AI, artificial intelligence, in helping us to determining stock or mutual fund to buy? Okay, Pak Kara.
Well, I think I need JJ's help on this, because I think Indonesia, we are still at the very early stage. But what now I and my team now are trying to build is a robo advisors only for the mutual funds, right? So basically, we at this stage we have not predicted the future performance. I think that would be, I don't think it's allowed in Indonesia. So basically, we just provide a recommendation based on the historical performance and also the risk of the funds, right? And then and then we try to build a certain algorithm to guide our robo advisor users, and also we try to combine with the human assessment. I think human assessment here is also I think, may be important when the anomaly in the market is coming. So, of course, we are going to rely heavily on our algorithm, but sometimes, in the market, especially in the big crash like this, so I think we need economist intervention, right? Analyst intervention to switch the button that, as for instance, we are in the crisis mode. So because in our experience, even though you build the best algorithm in the world, but especially in the very special moment, like during the pandemic, I think algorithm usually, pure algorithm usually fails. Especially in Indonesia, Indonesia maybe data availability and the technology is not as mature as in US or in China. So that's the way we try to build our robo advisors. But again, I think this is still at the very beginning, still at the infancy stage, and I think we need to learn from other advanced market, like in the US, China, India, and others.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Kara. Jika sekarang kita lihat, I think we will see another black swan in the visible future. We don't know because sometimes we will see the outbreak that we never predicted before. Okay, JJ, do you want to add some insights?
Yeah, I will add, and I think that the robo advisors in the U.S., I don't know that they're that advanced or that is. I think you give them too much credit, sir. I think that they, from what I've seen in the U.S., they really don't do much more than act as an asset allocation model, and they will slice up if you tell them, all right, I've got 30 years and I have this, a aggressive risk tolerance. Then they'll say, all right, we're going to slice it into a little bit of small companies, a little bit of medium companies, a little bit of large, and then some international, and put that together, and then maybe rebalance that. So if one section gets bigger, it'll rebalance it back to that original pinwheel that you're at. And that's what the basic robo models in the US do. Now you can add artificial intelligence and quantitative analytics, and I mean, it gets extremely complicated very quickly, but most consumers, and 99.99% of the consumers in the U.S., they're not using that level of AI. It's just really a simple asset allocation model. And so my opinion on that, and I'm not exactly sure how your robo-advisor stuff would work in Indonesia, but I would assume it's fairly similar to that. I think it's a good tool to just help you see what your mix should be, based on really simple parameters like how risky you are, what your risk tolerance is, and how long you can leave the money alone. I think that it can be helpful for somebody that's not familiar with it to begin with. One thing that I would add that you'd mentioned is to still have a human element in there. In the United States, what that human element has meant has actually been it's not necessarily someone making a big market call saying, oh, get out now, or oh, get in now. In the United States, that human element has been kind of to help with that discipline that you were talking about. Both one, discipline to do the thing, discipline to save every month, but also the discipline not to do the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong time. Because human nature, let's use 2020 as an example. Your human nature would have had you in the middle of March saying, get me out of this market. This is way too risky. The whole world's catching COVID. Get me out of this thing. And that's your human nature. And what I've seen is that the human element in the US, where it's the financial advisors, the investment advisors, what they were there to do is to say, whoa, hold on. If you were going to get out, you should have got out in January when things were at a high. You know, right now when the news is awful and the market's down 50%, to do it now would be the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong time. You put this plan in place to, you know, knowing there were going to be ups and downs, and you're going to be disciplined about it. So a good advisor in the States was kind of being that disciplinarian, saying, no, 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 no. Do you need this money next week? Do you need this money next year? Well, no. Well, in that case, leave it alone. So to me, that's how I see the human element, at least in the United States, coming into play, is helping people with that psychological aspect of it.
Okay. Thank you, Gigi. We still need the human analytical aspect. Okay. We still have 2 more minutes before ending the virtual today, but we still have 2 more questions, and I think maybe hopefully Gigi will answer the first question, and maybe Pak Kara will answer the second question very shortly. And the question for Gigi is, how big of cash we need to save, and how long that we need to save the cash.
So this is a quick one, so we'll have time for the second one. I tell my clients is you want to have about 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly expenses set aside in cash. Longer depending on how secure your job is. And if that seems like way too much money, well, just try to save up 1 month's worth, but then try to eventually get to that 3 to 6 months.
Okay, thank you so much. And the last question for Pak Kara, when can we start purchasing bond? Hello, Pak Kara?
Basically, I think bonds can, it depends on the issuance, right?
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah, so you can buy bonds when the bonds is being issued by the governments or by the corporations. And I think just want to add, I think bonds is a perfect tool, especially the government bonds, because the risk is zero, right? Because it's fully guaranteed by the government. And another one, I just want to add the first question. I think that is really important. How much you need to prepare your money to start invest in Indonesia? For mutual fund, 7 cents. 7 cents US dollar. Exactly. So only with 1,000 rupiah, now we are going to launch this product with OVO, and then you can start investing. 3 years ago, Bareksa, I talked to Pak William, the founder of the Tokopedia, and Pak Ahmad Zaki, founder of Bukalapak. So the idea is we want to bring down the minimum subscription value of the mutual fund. So we want to attack the false assumption that investing is only for the rich people. Okay. So investing is not only for Trump. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. This is the very last question from the Pak Romhendar Amin. The question is, can we have presentation material from the Pak Kara and also JJ? Is it possible to have the PowerPoint slide?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
We'll share after this.
Okay. Thank you, sir, very much, Pak Kara and also JJ. Okay. Thank you very much, Pak Kara and also JJ, for your time, and thank you also for the America audience. And hopefully we can see you again in next Saturday. Okay. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Bapak Budi Setiawan and the rest of the speakers. That was a very enlightening session. We hope to see you again next time. Now, the rest of you, please don't go anywhere because I have the name of the winner for our social media quiz today. Earlier in this event, I asked you guys, is it true or false that more than 3/4 of millennials do not have adequate financial knowledge? And the right answer is true. Out of 5,500 millennials surveyed, only 24% were able to demonstrate adequate financial knowledge. And our winner for today is Nofrita Widyastuti from Facebook. Congratulations, Nofrita. Now, you may be wondering, how can I develop an awesome idea for a place like this? Easy. You can go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, click Create an Event, and collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. And while you're on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletters for weekly event updates sent straight to your inbox. Alright, everybody, I think that wraps up this episode. It has been really fun, but unfortunately, we have to say goodbye for now. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at ATAmerica for event updates, fun content, and so much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Alright, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy weekend. Bye-bye.